Welcome to That RPG podcast, where every great adventure starts with a single idea.
I'm DQ, and I'm thankful to be your friendly neighborhood GM.
I'm Courtney Staples, and I'm thankful for my friends here, who I play RPGs with.
Now I'm Johnny Law, and I'm thankful I get to play TTRPGs and design them and talk about them with my awesome friends as well.
My name is Chris O'Neill, and I am a designer for Ninth Level Games.
And I'm Heather O'Neill from Ninth Level Games, and I am married to this guy, and I deal with this guy all the time, and we make really fun games.
I'm Yeet. I'm best known for talking crap about zines during Zine Quest and being a kobold.
Super excited tonight because we have Heather and Chris O'Neill from Ninth Level Games joining us, and they're going to tell us a little bit about Wrastlevania, currently crowdfunding on Backer Kit, so go check that out. But we're also talking about your adaptation of a popular board game that's kind of a cool little aspect, and that's called Thunder Road Vendetta.
Thunder Road Vendetta, the RPG, is the second RPG based on a board game that was itself based on another board game.
So with Return to Dark Tower as well?
Right. Return to Dark Tower is the first role-playing game based on a board game that was itself based on another board game.
Yeah, I used to play the original Dark Tower back in the day. My brothers loved it. Yeah,
working on Dark Tower was one of my bucket list items. It was a thing that I at no point in time thought I would ever get a chance. It was a thing that I loved when I was a kid. And so when the opportunity arose to work on Dark Tower, it was like, yes, please. And I also love Thunder Road. So that was kind of funny. But I mean, Thunder Road wasn't as near and dear to my heart as Dark Tower was.
Yeah, I didn't realize that was a previous board game. And then I knew about the newer board game, but not about the...
Thunder Road was more like early 90s as opposed to...
Late 80s. In fact, the big mechanic, if you have played the new Thunder Road board game?
We haven't played it at all yet.
No, I haven't gotten a chance to try it.
Now we're going to, obviously.
The mechanic of the original game was two boards representing a endless highway through the desert. And when you get to the end of the first board, you throw all the pieces that are on it back in the box because they're all left in the dust. And then you put that board at the end of the other one because it's an endlessly moving forward. And they do that in Thunder Road Vendetta, but it's far less important and far harder because Thunder Road Vendetta, the modern board game, is a much better overall game. But in 1989, it was a super fun game to just
throw the pieces,
pick the thing up and throw all your pieces and make fun of your brother because he was left in the dirt. Yeah, it's one of the reasons that the board game has there's little helicopters and you can spin the propeller, and that was a requirement of Justin, who owns Thunder Road, because from his as a kid, he was like, oh yeah, he was like, it is 100% important that you have to spin that rotor.
Yeah, we have some samples here to show.
The painted one is down.
It's not as good to see on screen anyway. So this is it's going to be this red color. It's going to have some decals that you can stick onto the car, and the dice is in the engine. You can either just do that or let it go on the table. Both ways work.
You can't see it here on the camera, but it is a very satisfying Hot Wheels Matchbox-esque roll. And, that, especially banging into stuff, really does generate a great random number. It's a great D12 that just happens to be an Avenger ready to go head into the wasteland.
So why don't you tell us about the two of you a little bit personally, and also Ninth Level Games, how it started and what you guys been up to?
Sure. So I'm Heather O'Neill, CEO, business boss lady, if you want to, that's what my actual title is on my card. So if anything actually has to get done, business-wise, marketing, crowdfunding, conventions, all that. And then I also sometimes get to design games and have fun and do that, So for me, the fun is the marketing and the product getting made. So I joined officially in 2017, but I think I really got more involved in 2014, 2015 when we decided to
2015
try crowdfunding again when Kickstarter started, and it's actually been Ninth Level has been around for a really long time, and Chris started the company in 99. So
co-founded the company in 99 with Dan Landis. The two of us, we met the first day of high school in 1988, and September the 5th, 1988. We were friends. We had done, we had just done everything together, and we started making games when we were in high school. And then we both worked in the games industry.
At ChessX.
We worked at ChessX.
ChessX. Okay, wow. Classic.
We didn't make dice. We worked when ChessX was a game distributor, so we worked in distribution. And then, we were just designing stuff, and then it was like, we can make our own stuff. And then we made and sold games, primarily Cobalt Ate My Baby, for years with no real goal or aim or one day Heather when Heather started really becoming involved, Heather asked us like, what were your gross receipts last year? And we were like, what?
Or like, what's your unit cost? Like, how many did you buy last time?
We don't know.
Literally no idea,
You just pull up a bunch of pile of money. Oh.
We have a credit card, and we pay the credit card off. That's what we do. That was our accounting system. But these days, I am the chief creative at ninth level, and I spend most of my time coming up with really crazy ideas, and then so I work at the very beginning of the process, and then I work at the end of the process again, where I do a lot of layout and the book creation, and then hand it all off to Heather to actually like deal with people and get stuff actually made.
Yeah, I mean, I would say he's definitely like the visionary of ninth level, like the systems and the rules, of course, yes, but also like the vibe and like because it started with Cobalt Ate My Baby, which we can talk about a little bit after this. Because of that, it's kind of like, okay, well, what is the vibe of ninth level? And that's coming from Chris. And then now, because it's been so many years, like, oh, now we all get it, when we just do that.
My brain has things like Wrastlevania just pop out of my brain. And then because of that, the people that hang out with me they catch the fever.
Yes.
You've had 16 different games out of the Polymorph system, right?
Is that how many games we have?
I noticed on your website, yeah.
It's also interesting because there's other games that are Polymorph games that are made by other people besides us. And we just announced a huge one coming.
I wasn't going to say that yet. Jeez. Okay, that's all right. He's just like loading this. I was like, that's going to be the end. And that's okay.
We'll talk about it later then.
We'll talk about it later.
I'm a little surprised that we have 16 titles. In fact, I mean, everything that we make except for Women Are Werewolves is Polymorph.
It's Polymorph now, yes. We've started moving. We still have a few board games. We dipped our toes into the board game world in that pre-COVID time, that 2015 to 2020. And then like it just became harder and harder after coming back from COVID, and like not even with the tariffs, pre-tariffs, it was already tough to compete. And then with that, we just decided we were going to kind of focus more on RPG, since that's our like focus and our kind of our foundation. Yeah.
It's what I love more than anything. And Heather loves making cool stuff and seeing cool things happen. And we can be far more creative in the role-playing space than in the board game space, because board games have constraints that role-playing games is pretty close. I guess comics is the only other medium that is as, the world is your oyster. The multiverse is your oyster.
Yeah, exactly. I did a lot of board game design and stuff during COVID, and I have other games out, and I've done some of that, and I realized like, sure, I like that, but I really like getting a product out, and like seeing it out is more important to me than I made my game. So like that's kind of fun because I get to focus on doing that and getting the product out and promoting it and like seeing people get excited by that. So when there's really cool ideas, it's like, cool, I'll just do it for that. I'll just do this for your game as opposed to my personal game that might take me 2 more years to make. So
right.
I can get to that.
Like we mentioned Polymorph, but I'm not sure that all of our listeners know the system. Could you tell us about like its origins and just like very briefly, like what kind of system is it? Like it's underlying all of your major products, right?
Yeah. So Polymorph is a narrative forward, easy to learn and play role-playing engine. It's not a game. It's a method for making games using what we call the resolver. So in it, each player is represented, their role in the game is represented by one of 4 polyhedral dice, the D4, the D6, the D8, or the D10. And depending on which die you are is kind of like having stats that are designed specifically for what you're trying to do. And then you're trying to roll specific numbers against the resolver. And then you use a bunch of tools that Polymorph has in order to emulate or simulate a different kind of genre or story type that you're doing. And so if you want what we like to say is it's the game that role-playing looks like on television. Because it's literally like, hey, I want to do this. And then the MC says, give me a roll against one of these 4 things. Basically as simple as that. But then you can add rules and complexity on top of that to get to the story that you're telling. So we have a game called Mazes, which is OSR-like fantasy role-playing. And it literally, you can pick up an OSR product and use it with Mazes.
Yeah, and I would actually say that Mazes, not even Mazes, sorry, Polymorph has been in Chris's head for potentially 10 years, but it was like not quite working where he had the D12 in there, and the math wasn't working. And then when you cracked it that the 12 should be taken out as a player character, it worked. And then you were like, oh, I really want to do this Mazes game, and maybe I'll do it this theme, and maybe I'll do that theme. And then we have to thank our friend
Steve Sedgley
at Bully Pulpit, who was like, well, you got to make the fantasy one first, so someone will steal your idea. So it was like Zine Quest 2019.
He didn't steal an idea. He's like, someone will hack it and make a dungeon crawler right away if you don't.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, that's a super valid point.
So we have to thank him for the push to do Mazes first. So then it was like Mazes. He'd been working on it. And it's like, oh, Zine Quest was a thing, 2019. Let's just put him out of Zine.
Zine Quest 1, yeah.
And it was good that we did that because it got it out really quick. And then we did a hardcover that came out in, I think, 2022. So like now there's a giant line, you name it. There's like a million books and adventures and screens and coins, dice, and all kinds of stuff. So that's kind of like really our crunchiest one, I guess you could say. And not to say not crunchy compared to D&D or Pathfinder, but what we have on our
it's not crunchy compared to D&D, and D&D isn't crunchy compared to Pathfinder.
Right. So like it's not in the same league. Like what we find is like our niche is great when people are like, that's too much for me or for my kids or my family or my friends. And even if they're a Pathfinder person, they're like, oh, this works because I can get my like family to play this with me or my friends or whatever, right?
And we have games that scale down to they're easy to play. You could play them with an 8-year-old or a 6-year-old.
Exactly. So we have a couple. Adventure Society is the one I had worked on for a couple of years. And basically, it's a social emotional learning is the underlying thing, and you're animal scouts, and you're helping the other animals.
Called Venture Society.
Yes, Venture Society. Yes, and you have a very simple thing where you're either a D6, 8, or 10, and you're either a mover, a protector, or a talker, and you have very simple numbers on that same resolver, and like that's it. What item do you have? That's it. There's no like referencing anything else on your character. But it's like, hey, are you an elephant that's trying to like cross over a rock? Yeah, you can do it, but
one of the funniest things about Polymorph is that like we say that there's no math, right? So that's not completely true, because in Mazes you do add or you lose hearts. But in Kobold Ate My Baby, of all things, that actually requires, there's one time where you have to add 2 D6s together. So the easiest game is the only one that requires math.
Yeah, exactly.
We're big fans of lower or at least head math with our D6 system. And I was asking about the children's thing is because I've actually run several sessions of OSR Plus with kids and have had to modify elements, and they don't really get the whole ethos thing, but it's there's ways to work around and ways to introduce it.
All children are just murderers. I mean,
they're all chaotic evil.
2 girls I was running it for, I had this Yeti for them to fight. Nope, they made friends with him. That's their buddy, and like they did not want to fight anyone. They were just making friends with everyone. I was like, well, that's
But yeah, so the point is like. Yeah, the point is like Polymorph is very versatile, and so we've got it like the gamut is there, and then Return to Dark Tower is the campaign version of Mazes with leveling and all that extra stuff now, and then we've got this crazy Wrastlevania one coming out where it's still Polymorph, but it's like, well, now it's kind of like a campaign Metroidvania where you replay the rooms and your character dies and you go back in and like
all the complexity is in the adventure.
Yeah.
Not in the
yeah, but it's a very nice and we can give you the link to share for everybody. There's a downloadable SRD framework.
I want to really deep dive into the whole Metroidvania aspect. But before we move off of Polymorph as a general concept, I think we had some questions about the math, and you talked about removing the D12.
We were definitely curious about like how you got into the mechanics of it and what the playtesting looked like, and yeah, especially like what made you decide to remove the D12?
Playtesting, I ran for a couple of years because I had actually originally created the rules to run a game called Service that we still haven't made. One of the big things in Service is that you were a bunch of clones, and so you didn't differentiate. Like you were all the same person at the beginning. And then over time, you would be like, well, I'm going to roll a D8 to see if you failed, then you didn't get to keep that die for that character, right? Because obviously that wasn't the correct die. And that was just kind of the thing. And then during that, developed this pseudo board game and I started to realize that the D4 acted like a wizard and the D8 acted like a fighter. And then I started coming down, and then I spent a bunch of time in a spreadsheet. One of the jokes that we make is in Polymorph, we did the math for you. The math, we already did it. But the first set of systems, we did it. We had a D12. And then I ran a lot of games in Service and in a game called The Very Good Dogs of Chernobyl.
Right. Which we did put that one out. Yeah.
And some games in a setting that was like kind of I don't want to call it steampunk, but weird history. And I started to realize that I was having these problems where the percentages weren't hitting correctly. And I was seeing that the roll wasn't doing exactly what it was supposed to do. One of the things I was trying to fix is that lots of times you spend a lot of time creating a character in a lot of role-playing games, and it doesn't do what it says on the tin. It's like, I am the protector. And then it's like, you look at your abilities and you're like, you don't really protect anything. You're not really good at that. You heal people, right? Like you're not doing that. Or you suck up resources, or whatever. So we want to make sure that the roles are actually determining what you do in the game. And so I went back to the drawing board and took the D12 out and then redid the math. Like Heather was saying, I literally ran out of my room Eureka style and was like, I think I broke it. I think I fixed it.
Every wife or husband encounters that moment, like when their partner comes down. It's like, I figured this thing out. They're like, what are you even talking about?
Yeah. And he really wanted to keep it D12. I think it was like one of those like heartbreak, like you have to kill your darling thing. And what you finally did, you were trying a long time to keep it in.
Because I love D12. I think it's such a fun die. One of the things that drove the entire beginning of this was the fact that I sat down and said, one of the experiences that people like about role-playing is rolling dice, right? It's just a fun experience. And specifically, they want to own their own set of dice around, because around the time I started doing the developing, there was a lot of games like Genesis that were coming out that were, here are specialized dice, right? Polymorph could be played with a set of specialized dice that would actually make the game easier, slightly. But then people wouldn't be able to have their own die be their character. And that's that was really kind of a driving force.
Yeah, and then we were able to, over time, realize the 12 could be for the GM. And that's where you'll start seeing in Thunder Road, for example, the car is a 12. And you'll start seeing it in things.
And in our mazes, City of Skull, which is the new mazes book that comes out, this uses D12 for just random tables so that you can the GM can, for the random rolling GM, as they like to say. So there's D12s.
Yeah, basically, once you did it, it worked. And we've even taken out the D4 for Venture Society. Kobold is all D6s. You know what I mean? And it still
The joke in Kobolds is that every Kobold's the same. So you're all playing the same role, which is the one that runs around. Kobolds has always been a D6 system. So the thing is we wanted it to be backward compatible with all of your Kobold D6s. And then we play tested it and it worked so well. It was like, oh, this is funny. And it actually works. So literally in the Kobolds book, all of the Polymorph books, there's a thing in the middle where the four roles are explained. And then in Kobolds, the four roles are explained, but they are all just D6s.
Right. I love that the roles actually are roles. Like it's that E and that L just kind of transforms as needed.
It's funny because like when I heard of Ninth Level Games, I'm like, where have I heard that before? It's because in the RPG communities I'm in, it's Kobolds Ate My Baby that is the most popular. Like it's the legendary one of your game.
It's been around for the longest. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the first one. It's been around for forever. It's the silliest one, and so it stands out against everything else. It's not like anything else. So like that's the one people like remember.
That predated Mazes? I didn't realize
Oh
that.
yeah, that came out in '99. That was their
Kobold
first
Day-
one. that they
Oh,
did.
yeah.
Oh, my apologies. I did not read that part.
Then we saw Mazes and we saw Dark Tower because we were like geeking out about it a couple years ago. We're like, oh, they did that one. And we were literally at your booth looking at that book.
Mazes is like the breakthrough. That's your first hit single, but Kobold at the beginning, that's like the deep track that like the hipsters are like. Yeah,
Kobolds is the first hit signal, but it's like the underground hit,
back.
like everyone.
Oh man, I remember I was in a basement in Downingtown, PA, playing Kobolds, and the guy brought it up, and it was crazy.
Yeah, 2013 or 14, whenever we did the Kobold original Kickstarter, that book, which again, 10 years ago or 10 years later, we bring out the one that's out now. That was a pretty big hit. And then, Mazes just blew it out there.
You summoned Eat. Yeah.
Every time the puppet comes, I have to drink. So sorry.
Put it back, brother. Put it back. Yum, 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 yum.
What's the story behind the puppet, though?
Oh,
The puppet?
Yeah. Did he inspire you way back from when Kobolds came out? Have you had him for a long time? What's the deal? What's the story?
When did I come out?
2021.
2021. I'm gonna put Eat away.
For Kobold, that's pretty old.
So that my brain works.
But the funny thing about Kobolds is they're not the smartest, best, greatest.
John loves them.
They are hungry, so they always try to go after a baby, but like they never quite. Like you don't really hurt babies and eat
It's like
them.
Wile E. Coyote.
They happen.
Wile E. Coyote physics is basically the origin of the actual story comes from and I'll dovetail back into Yeet, but the like where the joke comes from is us asking the question. We were trying to answer two questions. One question was, how ridiculous of a thing could I write in a convention manual that someone will come and show up to play a game? The other question was, why are people afraid of kobolds? And the answer was because they eat babies.
That makes sense.
It all works out when you think about it. It's like, why do first level adventurers have to go kill kobolds? And it's like, because if you don't,
Keep eating babies.
Are babies.
We just played a game with John's game he runs in OSR Plus called Great White North. And we spent, I don't know how many sessions we spent chasing these kobolds. And he has this voice for them that just like I can't resist.
In our world, kobolds are based off of Homestar Runner.
Okay.
So yeah, they all talk like this. It's very entertaining, and even when there's ridiculous bastards, you gotta fucking love it.
My God,
you gotta go.
That's funny.
We did a stuffed animal of the kobold in like 20.
Well, no, it came out after.
No, the original one.
Oh yeah. We did we had someone make bespoke kobolds that cost like $50 back in 2015 or something, and
we kept being like,
wants them.
We would play them, and I started doing a thing at conventions where I did a talking hand puppet that was just my hand. That was super annoying.
Yes.
It was Andy, and he talking like these, and people would be like, "Shut up! I hate him." And,
mostly our staff, not other people.
Other people thought it was
staff
funny.
was like, please.
And then we were like, well, maybe we could actually make a puppet. And we hired a puppet maker to make Yeet. The moment I got it, he just became like a real person, which is why I had to take him off, because when he is on my hand, my brain shuts off.
And like you didn't know puppeteering was something apparently you really are good at, and you're like, but it turns out.
I mean, I always liked puppets. I love Jim Henson. I love the Muppets.
Yeah,
I just didn't realize that I had an aptitude.
The best and worst day of my childhood was the day that I found out Jim Henson died, because that was my dream to work for him. But my best friend got Super Mario 3. So I was like, oh, well, cool. I get to play. I want to be kaboom. Yeah.
I mean, speaking of Jim Henson as being an inspiration between the two of you, because I know that you said that Heather, you don't always get a chance to design, but when you are designing with Chris and you guys are working on products, like what are you reaching for in your well of inspirations, whether it's books, TV? I've seen the music quotes throughout Thunder Road. I can see the inspiration from Wrastlevania, but like, what's your wellspring of inspiration?
Well, we actually have kind of like some core line, ideas that we kind of want to go through, right? So obviously we already have kobolds, we know what that is, but we have other things that we want to be like that. So humor 100% is in there, right? Puns and humor, we're in for that. References like that, make mashups that don't make sense, like Sentai and Sensibility or Pigeons 11, or like what we really like, So something where people get to be a kid and have fun, and like we can, by us showing them how stupid and silly it is, like they just dive into it, is what I really like there. And then the other side of it is like, let's just make something really cool that's like more action and fun and looks really cool, right? And that's more like the mazes side of thing. Not to say you don't have funny crack up times, but that's not really what the point of that is. Whereas kobolds and definitely Wrastlevania is going to be a mix of both, but there's going to be a lot of laughing, I think, in that one too. So like that's kind of where our core like mission is. And if it's not hitting that, where we don't all think it's funny or cool, and we're not seeing people are thinking it's funny or cool, then we're not going to make it.
I'm a big fan of coming up with an idea and then I call putting it on the shelf. So I'll spit something out or come up with something.
Wrastlevania is one of those.
We've had it for years, and it was like we just keep adding ideas to it, and we just keeping it there. It's there. We can still take it down, and we can play with it. Heather and I spend a lot of time in the car. We travel a lot for ninth level.
We're flying.
I mean, just in general, yeah. and we never shut up. You may have noticed that. So we kind of been having like a long running conversation just about things that we think are funny. And whenever one of us has something that like we're like, you're gonna laugh, right? We watch a lot of comedians. You're talking about like resources.
Yeah.
It's funny because Heather and I kind of like different
comedians.
Well, we like different comedians, but we like different kind of media things. Heather likes like true crime and people get murdered, and I like Swords and Fire,
cartoons, Jim Henson. Like we still watch like cartoons like Avatar and Hilda and all those stuff. If there's a new cartoon that might be geared to a 13-year-old or 10-year-old now, we're still watching it.
We're watching it.
Like we're into cartoons. We like all that. So, there's part of that. I love like Voltron, and I also love like Sailor Moon and that kind of stuff. So it's like any of that coming back from high school.
Voltron was Heather's first modern fandom.
And Baby
like
Yoda.
Grogu, our child, as we like to say. But the new Voltron was Heather's first time like experiencing a fandom from the ground up.
I'm not coming from a gaming background. I'm coming from a sports background in high school, and all in college. Like people when I met him, I didn't know what D&D was. I knew people that played Magic. That's it, And then when board games came out in America, I was kind of like, oh, what's the Settlers? What's this Dominion? What's this? And then I got more into it, even though I was around him.
Sucked. It's usually the other way around. People get sucked into sports and not into nerddom.
Yeah.
Lucky for you, you learned the true path.
I learned the true path, but yes, there's a lot of inspiration there. And like the other thing that's kind of cool is even though Chris designed the system and wrote on a lot of things, we are now at the point where we're not rating all of these games. We're coming up with a big picture. So Thunder Road is by the designers of the Thunder Road board game. Wrastlevania is by different people. So we just come up with like a summary of what we want it to be and let them go.
Yeah, you were saying about the music quotes in Thunder Road, right? We didn't do that. They actually
that's the designers.
But it's funny because we're big music fans. We just put out 3 playlists for Thunder Road, and the third one is all the quotes. And if you listen to it, it is not music that Heather or I listen to. The other 2 are more like what we listen to. So it is just kind of funny. But
it was great hearing about your inspirations, and it almost sounds a lot like embracing your inner child. Like you said, just going for the fun stuff, going for like whatever's ridiculous and stupid and silly, and like learning to laugh at yourself. And like how has that impacted your whole sort of view of RPGs in general? Like, do you now tend to gravitate towards those just very fun?
I don't actually role play that much, but when I do, I only play those kind that are fun. I won't even play a real D&D at all. I play like fiasco, BFF, like that kind of level.
Can Heather play a mean girl in high school?
Then I'm in.
She's in.
Yeah. The
Yeah.
other thing too is like I've seen it with our friends and everybody. Like most times when I'm watching, there's like at least 20%, if not more, they're laughing and having like they have all these inside jokes, but it's so serious in quotes, and it's like we just get rid of the "it's so serious" part.
It's funny. 10 years ago, I think we were a little more. I personally was still a little focused on the art in gaming, and that's a little more serious and about making. And I've made serious games, but Ninth Level's goal is to bring as many people to the table as possible, and we do that through making games that are accessible and fun. And it just so happens that we like things that are funny, so a lot of funny gets in, and not a lot of people focus on funny. So funny is kind of that's our magic weapon. That's like.
Well, we were talking about this, that we feel like it's like us and Rowan Ricticard are like the only people that have funny.
That really embrace funny.
You lean into the goofy. That's actually what I was going to say. So my professional history for the past 2+ decades is restaurants. And I'm I like to think I'm quite well knowledge, and I put out good product and I run a good staff and whatever, but I love having fun. I love putting up, and all my drinks are either references to Star Wars or whatever show I'm watching, or World of Warcraft back when I was playing that, or they're stupid puns. Like, and that's just like, I love that. But I'm like, someone tries to sell me a wine that's punny. I'm like, no, wines are serious. No, we don't do that. Like, so it's a dichotomy. But that has played into how I approach TTRPGs, and especially the designing of that.
$24 bottle of wine, then I'll accept a pun. If it's in that right, very drinkable and funny, I'm in.
For me, beers go nuts with the puns. Wine, there's only one guy. I can't get into this.
We're tangenting here.
What I was going to say though is that we play a parody version of OSR Plus in a game called Dungeons and Flagons show that we do that hasn't been released yet, where we have guests on and they say what we want to drink for the night, and everyone that's playing is drinking that, and I give a little history lesson and whatever, but then we roll up a random, like we literally roll off of tables and DQ creates a one shot on the fly. So down the road, if you guys are ever interested in doing that, we'd love to have you. But what I wanted to circle back into, if that's okay with everyone, is before all this. So 1999, Chris, you started this company in your head, at least started the process. What did you do before that? You're a musician, I know, and also Heather, what did you do? Because obviously you're very like a project manager.
I never worked in game. I worked as a project manager and a sales manager in tech.
Know when I see them.
Till 2020, and got all the marketing major, project management and sales up till 2020, and I worked for like big companies like AT&T and that kind of stuff, and like defense companies and stuff, boring stuff, and I didn't like it. And then I was like, but I'm really good at this, and it turns out all those skills are really good to run a company. So if you have all those skills, then you can run a company. So did that, and then 4 years into 2024, I was like, you know what, I maybe need some money. So I also now work at BackerKit, so hence the BackerKit thing. So I've been working there half doing.
Heather is very quietly one of the leading experts on crowdfunding for
so I helped people during COVID. Like I was like, oh, I can help you run your campaign. I'll do marketing for you or whatever. And then so I worked with BackerKit a lot and Kickstarter. And then I was like, okay, like they reached out and were like, do you want a job? And I was like, you know what? I haven't worked anywhere except for an RPG company for 4 years. So maybe that seems like a good idea. So I've been doing that, and it like ties in nicely with the company because it's like, well, we're going to conventions. Yeah, they're going to conventions. I can set my own schedule. Great. That's what I need because I need to work on this. So that, and then, basically Chris just does all the 9th level stuff, and I do mostly 9th level stuff. But I've always worked a full-time job before 2020 and did 9th level. So I'm a workaholic, if you couldn't tell. Yeah.
Chris is the dreamer. You get shit done. That's basically that's what it boils down to. I mean, it's perfect balance. It's
like we could just be sitting on the couch and I'll be like, grab a puppet and begin like turn around and say to Heather, like as the puppet, like, I think I want to do a rap career.
I think that's funny. So that works for us.
Actually, what happens is she says, stop it. And then she laughs to do it more until I win.
But luckily, yeah, it doesn't,
Yeah.
it doesn't annoy me. But yeah, so we have like to his point where he puts the ideas on a shelf. We'll put the ideas on the shelf a lot of times, and then we'll be like, you know what? We'll like either meet a writer who has a similar vibe, or we'll be like, oh, now's the time to put that out. So that's where Wrastlevania came in. We've got a game that's written, coming out in March, called Mount Olympus Community College. That's going to be You're the Lesser Gods that didn't get into Mount Olympus University, and it's a show.
Oh, I
community.
like that. Okay.
Yeah, so that was one I was
It's
going
a game where one of your characters defining
traits,
like the drive for your character is how have you disappointed your parent, are literal forces of nature. Like your parents are literal Olympian gods and you have disappointed them.
And who is your nemesis? You always have a nemesis
Because it's Greek myth,
like,
so you have to have a nemesis.
Here's an example of like I was going to write that, and then I was like, you know what, I really just want it to exist, so I gave it to the writers of Pigeons 11 and they did an amazing job with it. So I was like, yeah, great, you guys do this. I just want it to exist, so there's an example of that.
We should dive into these two games, Thunder Road and Wrastlevania, but I wanted to preface that with a question that's more like designery, because some of the hope is that the people who will be watching our podcast are people who are trying to design games too and make adventures. So what I wanted to get from you guys, especially because your games are very thematic, like each game is an encapsulated genre as far as I can tell, right? So you can really throw yourself into that experience. When you're running these games, what's the sort of things you do to generate immersion for players? And I noticed, for example, when I was looking through Thunder Road, like it references, hey, you can use physical aspects of the board game and bring it into the RPG. So like, what do you do to bolster immersion, and what do you suggest to designers and players for that?
One of the coolest little rules in Thunder Road from an immersion perspective is it's called taking the keys. So if you ever roll the top number on your die, you can take the keys, and you're encouraged to get an actual set of keys. In fact, we have a set of keys that will be coming out in the GM's kit. You put them in the middle of the table and you grab the keys. And now that you've taken the keys, you succeed on your action. But now you're in the driver's seat because you have the keys. So if anything bad's going to happen, it happens to you.
I was going to make a joke about swingers parties, but it is a spotlight thing. Yes, it's not that kind of get. Yeah.
It's very similar for Wrastlevania. When you create your character, you create your entrance song as a wrestler. So that is something you're encouraged to cue that up. Have the GM cue that up so that like you can play.
At Origins, we were running our Wrastlevania -1 adventure, which is something you get if you back you get it right now so that you can play it today. This kid was like, I was like, all right, so what's your entrance song? And he was like, the male theme from Blue's Clues. And he was like 15, right? And I was like, this is hysterical. And he was playing it. So he's playing this big monster wrestler called the Mailman. And every time he would do something, I would play I cried. I was crying the whole time.
We put those in there because obviously Chris is a funny person. So if he's running any game, it's a fun time for people, right? But let's say you're not an actor or you're not as boisterous. We put in these things that are kind of part of the game that make it feel like the game. So when we talked about Polymorph, we didn't even say this. The roles on the rolls have different thematic names. So it might be in mazes, like it's books, boots, blades, bones, right? It's knowledge, agility, fighting, defending, right? But in other ones, it's thematically something else where you're like, oh, I'm in Rebel Scum, and like the droid has intel, right? And it's like you're playing
droid has
data, right? Instead of intel, who someone else has intel.
But the Ronin has blades,
right?
Because they have a laser sword, and the Rogue has
laser sword
in a galaxy. A little
a photo rapier. Yeah,
Right. But so basically, one of the things that Chris mentioned when he said earlier about the narrative is part of it in Polymorph is a lot of what we do, instead of adding numbers to things, we add words. So the words actually mean something, which is funny. And it gets you more immersed in what you're doing because you're like, well, I'm going to use blaster instead of just saying I'm going to use fight or I'm going to roll.
I have a +3 to attack. I'm gonna roll blaster.
Right.
Roll blaster for me.
So in a way, you're saying that the writing of the rules itself can be a way to achieve immersion, because as you're reading them, you start to get in that mindset, right?
And you said encapsulated genre, which was a cool way of thinking about it. I like that term. But all of our books are encouraging the players to let go and step into the world, right? One of the things that Cobalt Ate My Baby was originally just a straight up parody. Like the original intent was never that people were going to play this game. It was just a joke about Dungeons and Dragons.
It's the Cards Against Humanity, right? It's how that started, and now look what happened.
Right. In 99, you were like, okay, I think, what was it? You said third edition had just got
Third
announced?
edition had been announced. It wasn't even.
Oh, wow.
And then-
Yeah, that's when I started playing was just at the tail end of 2E.
Yes. So that's when.
So around that time, you were originally thinking about doing something more serious, and then it was like,
Yeah.
Then you kind of were like, let's just make fun of D&D and do this little zine. And of course that resonated with a lot of people.
But what we
it's changed.
learned from playing the game, especially at conventions, was that the game gave people some kind of, it made it okay for them to act like idiots, unleashed their inner child, right? Just, you can be silly and you can be fun, and it's okay because you're playing Cobalt Ate My Baby. And that's really the truth of all the game. When you're playing Pigeons 11, you are birds that are doing heists. But really what we're saying is we're giving you permission to make really bad jokes and puns and pretend to be Brad Pitt and George Clooney, but as birds.
As birds trying to get like crumbs of food, right? Like it's so the stakes are so silly that we're actually gonna like role play this. And that's why sometimes when I first started GMing, for conventions, I didn't want to do mazes or something because I'm like, okay, I can do the stupid games because it's like low stakes. So it's kind of like all the games are like that, because even mazes is really good if you've never GM'd before, because it's like we're just gonna kind of like be at the door. We have a sword, and we're gonna see
We're
what
gonna
comes
kick
out.
this door in.
See
We're
what
going in there. There's a monster. I gotta kill and take his treasure. That's what I gotta do.
So even the serious themes are low stakes because everything we do is meant to be kind of a one shot. And yes, people campaign them, and there are campaigns, but like it's not, oh my God, now I'm investing 16 weeks of my life or more, and I have to write this big storyline, and I have to follow this thing. It's a lot lower stakes and just have a fun time. And I think that the immersion is there because the barrier to entry is lower, and they're like, cool, I'm just going to try this for 2 hours, and the next thing you know, they're doing it every weekend.
And when you drive, that barrier to immersion is interesting again, because the idea is we're taking as much out of the way to just say, here is this pure form hot metal version of this joke, right? In Sentai and Sensibility, it is you're a Power Ranger in Jane Austen's Regency. And because of that, I don't need to give you a whole lot more information. You already know what to do.
Yeah, I have to admit, like I have not GM'd before ever. And I think part of that is that I keep thinking like, oh, I want to run this like serious game with vampires and in the winter and it's all dark and everything. But I should just run like, no, you're like a bunch of random murder hobos trying to steal a baby or something. Like that's what I should really dive into.
I highly suggest that, because like for me, like Business Wizards or Excellence or Pigeons 11, like we're Kobolds or something. It just makes it so much easier. So we do find that a lot of people were like, I always play, but I've never GM'd, is like a big thing for mazes for us. And for younger people or non-role-playing people, Kobolds is another big one, or one of the little funnier ones, right? It's a good first barrier to entry.
For mazes, we have a bunch of pre-designed dungeons, like little modules that are designed to play in like 2 hours. And they're amazing if you want to get over that hump, because it tells you everything, and it literally has, we call them door questions. So you're at the door to adventure, and then I'm going to ask you a question, and it's like, the evil wizard Bargles on the other side of this door, did he A, kill your father, B, owe you money, or C, you work for the church and you need to stop this unholy necromancer. And it gives you everything that you need to go. Without any prep, you're ready to rock and roll. Players have complete buy-in, because the moment they answer that question, they're like, "Oh, he owes me money. That guy, that motherfucker."
Yeah, and I think we make it simple, and there's not any like break to be like, well, let me go check. Like, of course, you're gonna say like, do I get advantage or something? But like, it's not like, well, let me
look that up.
There's no like lead up and shopping trip and like to get to there.
Almost when I was reading up on Wrastlevania, I was reading about the dice, and it took me a few moments to recognize like, wait, you only have one die that you roll. That's That's it. That's so simple.
Yeah, sometimes you roll.
Because you have advantage or disadvantage.
It's the same one, at least.
Only ever roll your die. And so the decision, I love when I sit down and I'm playing with someone new who's a little trepidatious. And I'm like, roll bones for me. And they're like, what should I roll? And I said, you only ever roll your die. And I say it that way. And it's everyone laughs because I'm being, but I'm doing it for a reason, because as soon as it really clicks, you're gonna tell me what I'm rolling against. I don't have to care about that. I just have to tell you what I want to do. It's over all that barrier to playing. And what's interesting on the other side is there are some players who truly enjoy the minutia systems mastery of a bunch of games. And the good thing is those games exist and they can play those games, right?
Right. Like, we're not trying to compete, and we never were, because was never that anyway, right? So it's like, Mazes is a system. I think you were talking about like Shadow Dark or Blades in the Dark, kind of like in that same line of thing, but it's not the same thing, right? So but like it kind of freed us up after we kind of started realizing it, like even more and more and more, that the things we put out are totally unique, to give us more freedom to just kind of keep doing that, right? And not worry about what else is out there, really. So that where that's there, I think another thing a lot of people do, especially new designers, is they're like, I'm going to make a 5e, or I'm going to make a, totally fine. You should do that if you want, for sure. But if you want to make your own thing, like looking at all these different systems, like this one isn't one that is freeing for that to modify, but also like, could also just do the storytelling type thing or whatever you want to do,
Call it a Morkborg Heartbreaker. The fantasy Heartbreaker is like literally like my favorite thing. I have a whole collection of 1980s.
All RPGs and books.
Literally, our game, City of Skull, our new Mazes game. If you backed the campaign, you got an in-world zine, because one of the things about it's a campaign world for Mazes, and in that world they play a role-playing game. But the role-playing game they're playing is basically a joke about vampire, because it's the evil elves that ruled everything. But it's called Fall of the House of Heartbreakers. The name is the name of the game.
Yeah.
Chronicle of the Fall of the House of Heartbreakers.
I think the other thing we try to do, and again, partially because a lot of what we do is high concept, and we want to get you in there, and we want to get you thinking like jokes or whatever, like that kind of stuff. Like, bringing in something that is like, okay, I'm immediately in the world because I read this one sentence or saw this one image, and that's all I need. I don't need like a 500-page tome to tell me that. I need 20 pages of that, and then I get to the rules, and then we go. Yeah.
The evil Ultra Dracula has taken over.
I was just going to bring up Wrastlevania.
Greco-Romania, and used magic to become immune to weapons. The only way to stop him is pro wrestlers.
That's all you need to know.
That's all you need to know. You don't need anything else. You're ready to go.
And I did want to loop back to like the Resolver, or as it's known in Wrastlevania, the Razzolver, and how it's like actually shaped like a controller, and like even that just puts you in a certain mindset. And like, I'm curious, Chris, especially from like a visual design standpoint, like how do you pull from different sources for things like that?
So that kind of stuff is what I love to do more than anything. In fact, I have said many times, and I've done some talks at conventions about character sheets. Character sheets are the UI of role-playing games. They're how the player interacts with the game. And so our games, I actually start all of my game design at the character sheet.
Well, I was gonna say, I think you do the main logo, front cover, and the character sheet. They're the top two.
He's just sitting in the back of class, just drawing Wrastlevania 500 times. Yeah, I have you pegged, Chris. I have you pegged.
He 100% is doing that. Now, in that case, we hired somebody to do with a really cool logo, but then he did, once he had it.
A book that's just filled with these writing things like. Yeah. I once had one of our writers was like, "Hey, could you go back to your notes from our meeting?" And I was like, "What notes?" And they were like, "You were writing notes the whole time." I was like, "I wasn't writing notes. Doodling in a freaking book. That's how I think."
But yeah, so he's definitely got, like I said, visionary, has the idea, and can see the whole. He's one of the people who can see the whole concept, the whole RPG in his head before anything's written down.
I design everything up in my head before I write anything down.
Yeah, so that helps. He already has a vision.
But when we have an idea, maybe I'll do the logo or I'll do the title, and we'll get that, but I start my design process at the character sheet. And what's funny is the character sheet that I designed first is almost never the character sheet that ends up in the book.
Because the rules start to change when you evolve it, right?
Not only do the rules change, but then the art style and what it's going to be like and all. But that's the first. My vomit draft is a character sheet. But for Wrastlevania, the very first thing I designed was the Nintendo controller, right? And I was like, oh, so that's the framework, because the idea is you're not in the game. You're a wrestler, but are you really a wrestler? You're really a pixelated wrestler
in a video game.
You're the concept. You're the idea of a wrestler, and it's really funny saying to people like, well, press the A button, like for attack, and that's roll 4, 5, 6, or 7.
So you definitely remember. Well, I saw that you have muscle men as a Kickstarter thing.
We have to have muscle men because we have a guy who's really good at like making stuff, and I was like, could you make a muscle man? And he like a little guy, and he's like, yeah. And then he's like, I'm just getting used to like doing the rubber, and he made a sample, and it looks just like a muscle man. I was like, yeah.
It does. It looks awesome. But there was an original NES wrestling game where there was a guy from the Amazon that did a piranha attack, but it's very much that vibe. Like I just like see like the great the Ultimate Warrior ready to do his like over the top.
Perfect example of us using other people to get stuff done and finding people that have a skill set that doesn't like Nintendo. I'm too old for, so I don't really know that much about like old Nintendo stuff. We went out and we don't, neither Heather I know like basically anything about wrestling. So we went out and we got writers that knew video games and knew wrestling.
Yeah, exactly. So, that's definitely we do that a lot more now than we did pre-COVID times when it was like, well, we're just writing it ourselves between like the 3 or 4 of us, and that's it. But real quick, when he was talking about the D-pad, it reminded me from going back for your designer listeners, the reason the character sheet is actually a good place to start instead of trying to write your entire game is that's what you're going to play test with, and the first thing people are going to see. So if you didn't think of that, and it's just kind of like, oh, here's a loose leaf piece of paper, start writing down, they're already kind of out of the world, right? If you're all worried about it being this like 12,000 word adventure to start, it's like, no, just get the high concept, get what the rules are, and get the character sheet in front of it, because what are you going to show people when they have to play? And so I think that by necessity, early days, that's probably why he started there, because it was like, you have to do that if you're going to start showing it to people,
And it really does get you, a picture's worth 1,000 words. Like, again, I am a graphic designer, so that's not a skill set that every designer has. But find someone that you can work with to do that, because it really does. It puts you in the world. You're talking about like, where's that immersion point, right? Like in Rebel Scum, the character sheet looks like an old Star Wars action figure packaging. Head, it says this is what it is. For Thunder Road, it looks like a car interior, right? Like the idea.
Yeah, and like Sentai and Sensibility, it's a dance card from like a wedding.
It doesn't actually
kind of look like that,
but it gives you that thing so that when you're looking at it, you're like, oh, okay, I get it. I'm in there, and I see that. One of our goals, design-wise, is that you don't ever have to go to the book.
That's
right?
true. That is one of our goals. Yeah, we try to have it be that the GM might have to have the book, but the players don't have to have a book.
All the information that you need to interact with the game should be on the character sheet.
Why don't you tell us about, so in Thunder Road in particular, at least in the little adventure book, the one that you can download, like you can tear pages and flip them, which I think is also very physical. And then the other, I think it's in Wrastlevania, we have QR codes. And can you talk about the legacy features too that are part of it?
Sure. Yeah. So this is going to be a little bit of different vibe game. It's still on the same idea of the high concept and the simplicity, but it's actually a boxed experience that's a full campaign. But instead of just being a campaign where you have, it's going to be, you're going to find things out like you would in a video game, right? Well, how can you do that when you're role playing? Because you're not actually playing the video game. The idea is you go into the foyer, and in the beginning, it's like, well, there's this rat I hid, or there's a skeleton, or whatever it is, right? And that's it. And then you get to the next room and then you get killed. And you're like, oh my gosh. Well, then you go back in and it's like, oh, well, now I've like got a skill and I realize that, actually I can see over here that there's a candle. I need to light the candle. And if I light the candle, I see that there's another, whatever. And this is not in the game. I'm just making this up. But that's the idea. So like you're doing that. And some of those interactions are going to be things that the GM makes up. And some of them are going to be things that the game says are there. And once they're unlocked, the players will be instructed to start filling out the squares on the sides of the QR code. And it will work. So if they're blank, so if you open the book and you're going to scan it, it will not work. So then as you do things, it's like, okay, I think you put a couple icons in, and if you look at the main crowdfunding page, it'll tell you to like fill in the square next to the snake or something, right? In this room. And then like later you do something else and it's like, now fill in the one next to the dagger. And then next time it's like next to the jewel. Well, now the QR code works, right? That means you've cleared.
And in Wrastlevania, there's different rewards. So you might get a video. You might get a video of Ultra Dracula telling you you're a coward and he's coming for you. Or you might get a download, or you might get a
history of the world, a little like more like background.
Professor Von Wrestling.
Or it might instruct you to open an envelope like a legacy board game.
Yes, or it says open envelope 3.
Yes.
Right.
So that's where the legacy element comes in. So Brian Neff, who's one of the designers of this, works for Restoration. There's our connection. And he does legacy design for Betrayal, House on the Haunted Hill. And he's done another legacy game. I can't remember. But he's done a few legacy games. So he already has the legacy mindset and the wrestling mindset.
Is this your first time porting a Metroidvania style game, like concept, into a TTRPG?
Yes, it's our first time. But the designers are, like I said, coming from that world.
So except for mazes, we've actually never really focused too much on adventure content. Mazes is a different story.
You set the tone. That's what we do. Yes.
But we're generally focused on the system. With Wrastlevania, very early on, it was, in order for this game to feel right, it needs to be a Metroidvania, which means that we have to do the work of the adventure design. Because if we just leave it to GMs at home, it's going to be an uneven experience. It's kind of like mystery games. Unless your GM is very, very good at mystery games, you are much better off playing a design mystery module because it's written by a person who understands how mysteries work and is going to give you all the points. Whereas I'm like a freewheeling GM, so mystery is bad for me. It's actually great because they come out great because it's all mystery box stuff. But anyway,
you don't even know what happens.
I don't know, John.
But I think that's one of the things is it's a little different for us as a product. But now that we've gone from, okay, we've done a bunch of one shots, we have mazes now turning into like a whole campaign, a setting book coming out, Dark Towers, that we're seeing like Venture Society's a boxed experience. Not that it's necessarily, difficult as this, but there was a 10 adventure campaign. There's 25 adventures in the book. We've already kind of seen one thing we noticed with people that are loving this level is they want a lot of adventures and they want to not have to make it up. So, that's a little bit more of a thing for people who aren't playing mazes. Mazes is like, yes, they like that, but they're probably going to make up their own more often than the other people. So we were like, okay, let's do another one of these where there's 40 plus 50 plus hours of like made content, plus all these side quests. Plus, if you take 6 hours to do the 2 hour content that we think you
right, if you spend all the time talking,
you can read every book in the librry. That's
if you spend all the time talking to the werewolf because he has an accent that you think is really funny.
We do that to our DMs all the time.
As a minimum 40, 50 hours, you might be at 90 hours just the main core storyline, right? To unlock and beat Ultra Dracula, right? So this is like where we're like, okay, let's just try this and see if it's good. See if it's interesting to people. Yeah.
It seems like a good advantage of the sort of modular approach to like design that I'm seeing lately, where you have like the system, the polymorph system underlying things. Then you can release all of these genres that sit on top of the system. But now you can also create these adventure modules that tie in, which is kind of like the old school model where they had a lot of adventure modules, but they're not as deeply embedded with the system. Like your system's very portable.
Yeah, no, I think we've kind of graduated to the point where we're like, oh, we actually can start doing that more now. I mean, 5-10 years ago, we were just trying to get books out. And now we're like, oh, no.
Can you cross over your worlds?
We have not yet.
Oh, no.
It's like Smash Up,
A Mario Party joke. I like it.
Kobolds and Thunder Road are probably the closest in vibe. Thunder Road has the same kind of manic energy. We're gonna do. I want to do. We'll see if we do it. I want to do a. I want to do a
He
zine
wants to,
quest of Fast Cars and Fireballs, which is fantasy Thunder Road.
We probably will make it as an adventure at some point. Will it be this year's Zine Quest? Great question.
Seems like a natural progression for you guys.
Progression,
Yeah.
Why not?
I love the idea. We do have in the new Kobolds Eat My Baby book from 2024. There is the death charts, and there's one that's called the ninth level chart, and how your kobold dies is like
It's basically every
every one of our games
Yeah.
themed to our games. So that's like as close as we get to a crossover. Yeah.
But much like Kevin Ciambata and the Worlds of Palladium, there will be a point at some time where the rifts of ninth level happens, where we just have a game that is all of our other games attack each other. That'll happen.
Ninth level of hell.
The
basically.
multiverse, yeah.
Yeah, the ninth level, the ninth circle of hell. I love that. Something like that.
You feel free to take anything I'm throwing out here. It's yours. This is a free domain. Yeah.
And you were talking about character death and kobolds dying and the death chart and so on. And I noticed when watching that actual play of Thunder Road, even within that hour, there was a character death. So it seems like deaths are not uncommon in these systems. Like, how does that work? How is death handled?
Oh, that's actually, it's besides kobolds.
Kobolds and Thunder Road, I would say, are a little more deadly.
Yeah, so Mazes is less deadly than Shadow Dark, but more deadly than D&D. But it's to preserve kind of that old school, fear. Kobolds, death is an immaterial aspect. Dying is just something that happens, and you just make a new kobold. You instantly just keep playing. Like, the joke is in kobolds that there's an infinite number of kobolds.
I think that's another reason people, once they sit there and they're through, 15, 20 minutes, even if they're like, I'm not quite sure this is kind of funny, the first person at the table dies, and then they do this whole thing about how they died, and they make another character, and it's like, oh, everything was fine, right? Like, they realize that, like, make it too precious. We're just having a fun time. The fact that they're, getting exploded, by the TNT that they're holding or whatever,
right.
And they explain it. It's just so over the top, like you said, Wile E. Coyote, and then they're just back, and it's fine. It's very
most of our other games don't. A lot of our games, like especially like our Awesome World games, don't even have violence, right?
Sure.
Like so death isn't a part of those games. Like where death is part of a game, Rebel Scum, you can't die until the third act. So there's a mechanic in it called the Rising Darkness, and until you get to 7+ darkness, you literally can't die, right? Like, so if your character dies, if you go through the mechanics where you fall because you've taken too much danger, you're just going to show up in the next scene where someone has to go get you, right? Like, oh, you've been captured. Oh, you've
just like in other things that might be similar to Rebel Scum. Yeah, exactly.
Oh my God, Chewbacca blew up. Wait, no, Chewie was on a different ship. But if you die at the end of it, that's an important character decision. So the game lets you have that option, so that if you're telling the kind of story where my character death would mean something. I ran a game at Gen Con where in Rebel Scum, the robot character's drive is self-awareness and identity, and the robot gave up their identity. And it was very touching. It was very cool. It was a really cool moment. And the game allowed it to happen naturally. And that was like a really cool moment. And so that's, is there a reason for death to happen in your game? Then you should totally use it and build mechanics around whatever they are. Like in Mazes, it's important that characters be able to die, because when you're going down in an old school dungeon, if I can't die, then I'm just playing a video game, right?
Yeah. There has to be stakes. And like Chris was saying, some markets don't even have any combat. There is nothing that doesn't happen. So in those cases, it's not even a possibility. Even if they like fall off a building, it's just like they're a cartoon.
Thank you. I just tend to gravitate towards death, so I was curious about how that works.
It's your jam.
It's my thing.
I have one last system question, but I also wanted to comment that what's funny is, like, a lot of the times the really goofy games, at least in our one-shots that we've run, you end up with these weird touching moments that can happen because everyone has decided to let themselves lean in a lot. And it's surprising when that happens because you're like, this game was supposed to be really stupid, but suddenly someone has a tear in their eye, and it's random. But the question I had was, one of the things I noticed in Thunder Road is, the game group is very clearly defined in that, we're drivers who go out on adventures, we're collecting scrap, and then we come back to our settlement. And the settlement I thought was an interesting concept because you don't see that in every game where there's like a base of operations. So I wanted to get a sense of like, what was your thinking behind that? Do the other games also have like a sort of base in there when you return to in your game loop? What are you thinking?
So Dave Chalker and company that wrote Thunder Road, they also designed the board game, and their original concept for the board game involved a base, and they thought it was a cool idea because the genre they're emulating, that's always part of it. Unless you're Mad Max, who comes direct from out of the wasteland, everyone else is somebody, the scavenger, that's like just trying to deal. And since you're playing as a group, the idea is that we have this community. Apocalypse World, that's like half the book, right? Is your thing.
And we don't really have anything else that's specifically a settlement, but we do have, like in the kids game, Venture Society, there's like different villages, and you're from this village and your scout troop is from this village, right? And then in Rebel Scum, you have a shared ship, because obviously you're on a ship together, and the ship has its own character sheet and stats. And then in
Very Good Dogs, you have a pack dog. So there's a mechanic.
Sounds like you guys have this. It's a
we do. It's just in a different way.
Again, one of the tools that you have in the creation set is we have a community option. Like, so what's that thing that we haven't, that we played with in common? Because now that I'm saying that, we have it in a lot of our games.
No,
because
we do.
You have a boat in
Scurvy Buggers.
Scurvy Buggers, yeah. but you there's not a lot. Even the settlement, there's not a lot of mechanical baggage to it. The settlement has more mechanical baggage than in any of the other mechanics. The other mechanics are really a way to pull things in. Like the ship in Scurvy Buggers and in Rebel Scum is because those stories, pirate stories and Star Wars stories, you're always going to have everyone travel in a ship somewhere. That's just part of the story.
Right.
And lots of games have spent huge amounts of time creating rules that work within their framework so that you can have these ships that cause there to be characters whose entire purpose is just the ship. And then that character can't actually act or do anything in the story if they're not on the ship, which sucks. So we just said, don't do that. We just have a ship in common, and maybe you're better at flying it, but I'm better at shooting on it, and you're better at using the transporters.
Right. Right. And like, obviously there could be stories or adventures that are made where, different people have to do different things, but the idea is like, it's not integral. It's just there and we're on it, So yeah, so there's a lot of things like that. It has a lot of autonomy in the system. So like anyone who's like, oh, I want to do more of a group thing, obviously in the heist, there's not really a home base called out. But you have another mechanic that we have is marks and bonds, right? So like, you can strengthen bonds, and then, some have combat, some don't. Some have group stats, some don't.
Again, there's no hard and fast rules in the design side of it, but it's, from my perspective, we start every game that we start with, we say, what is this story type? What does this genre need? What are you trying to do? And how do I make the game do that? And what do I need for the game to do that? And every game's going to be different. Every story type's going to be different. There's something. If I was making a slasher horror game, it would be very different than if I was making a haunted house game, even though they would both nominally be horror games, but what mechanics they need. And I think one of the problems that a lot of games get into is they're creative and they say, I want this game to do everything for X. And then what it means is that you have to have a lot of rules instead of saying,
Well, that was part of the reason we actually called and we trademarked the word fun shot, which is the skinnier, the smaller books. We call them fun shots because it was like, it is just going to be a high concept. Yes, if you want to change the pirate ship to be an alien spaceship, sure. But like the whole point is you're pirates. This is what you're doing. It's our flag means death, basically.
Right. You could play Pirates of Darkwater,
Sure.
Or you could play Ice Pirates, or you could play the Ferengi. It doesn't matter,
Right.
Because the story that's important is that we're a bunch of found family living living outside of the law.
But what I'm saying is the whole point is we're not trying to compete with someone who's like, okay, we're SWAT. It's like, I don't even know another.
It's like a 7th C, or what's it called?
Example where it's like there's all these books and there's all these things you can do.
All about just that and the mechanics.
Like, hey, we're gonna do this thing.
It's not Pirate Board, right? It's not 7th C, right? Because those games exist and they do those
right.
It's telling a very specific kind of story.
All I gotta say is thank God I was muted just now because I was about to explode the fact of Fun Shot. Great. But then you mentioned Our Flag Means Death. I was like, oh, great show. That should not have been ended with it. And then you say Ice Pirates. I'm like, well, that's a piece of my childhood.
I don't know what that is, but anyway, first I'll go down. He's about to tell me.
I've never heard of Ice Pirates.
It's a OSR Plus movie watch kind of movie. You do a double feature of that and Kroll, maybe it would be really cool. But
that sounds pretty good. But yeah, so like I mean, the system itself is very versatile. So like I said, we'll give you the link. You guys can share because I think like it's available. So might as well have people who are thinking about.
Yeah, we encourage people. The most exciting thing for me as the original designer is watching other people come up. We have like people that aren't like there's games that have been made using Polymorph that 9th Level didn't put out. There's one about animals in drag shows as other animals. All the Wild.
There's a number of them.
Hero Catastrophe, which is a game about like putting to rest like your friend, and you have like this magical item. It's like about what happens when everything's over.
Yeah, no, there's a whole bunch.
And other games. And those are all games. I was never going to make that game.
And
I was never going to come up with that idea. And that's amazing that it exists.
We can tell you some things that are coming up because, so you may have heard of there's a company called Devere. They make mostly Spanish language games, and they do some of our games in Spanish. Well, they licensed Polymorph to make other games that are only going to come out in Spain. And okay, cool, great. But then just this past weekend at Gamehole Con, we are doing the Munchkin role-playing game.
Or Steve Jackson. So Steve Jackson Games will be putting out Munchkin RPG. That'll be a Polymorph game.
And it makes sense because John Kowalik, who does Munchkin, does Kobolds Ate My Baby. So it's like a synergy there, like with all that. So that'll be really fun. So that's supposed to come out next November. So that'll be kind of cool.
And Steve Jackson himself is a big fan of
this system.
Polymorph.
Yeah. And then we've got 2 other ones I don't think I can talk about. 2 other bigger time publishers that are going to be putting out Polymorph games.
But the Polymorph games will be coming out by other companies. So we're starting to see Polymorph extend. Because once you know how to play a Polymorph game, picking up another one is very easy.
It's just kind of like when someone walks up to a booth or something, it's like, okay, what do they gravitate towards? Great. And then if they're like asking, it's like, did they come into mazes? Okay, then it's even easier as you go this way. Oh, you started at the little kids one. Okay, same idea, but we add more to it.
Before John guides us into our rapid fire section, I want to start a new tradition because we've just started, right? So my new tradition question will be especially for design-oriented RPG people. What's your one piece of advice to a budding designer who's trying to make their first game or trying to get their footing in the RPG world?
There's 2 things. I would say first, don't wait forever to show it to anybody and get it to the table. And my second is if it feels like it's even remotely close to done, do a zine quest because that's the lowest barrier to entry to actually make you do it.
The hardest thing is you got to kill the thing that you want, even though it's not working. Just kill it. One of the biggest problems.
Use it in another game.
Oh yeah,
there you go.
Yeah, you don't have to throw it away. You take it out, you put it on the shelf, you come back to the idea later. That's correct. Right? Yeah, it was a mistake. We won't talk about it now, but when they're an adult, the reality is that like music, role playing is a thing where almost everyone that's involved in role playing is just doing it because they love it, and because of that, they think in their head, well, this is the part that I think I love, so I'm just going to keep banging it against the wall until it's what I want it to do. And sometimes it's just never going to work, right? Like there's a reason it's not working.
Yeah. And I will say, so as Chris said, I do a lot of things in the industry. I am on the board of Unpub, Unpublished Games Network, which is unpub.org. So it's for board game and role-playing game people to like play test and like get education and mentorship. So I talk to people constantly. And like one of the big things is they're either keeping it here, like I said, or they're trying to do their fantasy heartbreaker instead of just getting something out. So like if you have your fantasy heartbreaker, cool, but try a smaller zine first to just like get the juices flowing, get something out, see if you even want to make the games or self-publish or whatever, and then do the bigger project.
One of the things that Heather taught me was,
and I did tell Chris the same advice, otherwise mazes wouldn't be out.
Your 85% is someone else's 100%, right? Like sometimes you just have to be done,
and you're too close to it, and you're like,
too
well, this
close
isn't
to
perfect.
it. You have to have someone else look and say, hey, this is ready, man. You could sit in the back room and you could play that song and you're like, something's just not right about it. And it's like, it's probably great.
There can always be a remaster too. Like there's always like room to grow.
Honest, you can always remaster your stuff.
Yeah.
Just record it again.
Absolutely.
First off, I would like to give this gift to you that I would love for you guys to do a game based off the TV show Succession.
Oh, I love Succession.
Where the GM is Papa Roy and everyone else is, and they're just unserious people, and it's just awful people.
It could be called Unserious People.
Unserious people, yeah.
And Succession is just modern day Game of Thrones, so
yeah, exactly. It was a show that I had my arm twisted to watch. I'm so thankful it was, because it's like I hate capitalism. Oh no, this show is amazing. This show is so good. So that was my one thing. My other, and this might be out of your timeline. We like saying that you didn't play too much NES, Chris, but there was a show called Inhumanoids when I was growing up that was amazing and had the best toys ever. And I just feel like that could also become a really cool.
Okay.
Oh man, if there's so many great cartoons that if we had the opportunity.
Well, and one of the things we actually, real quick, and this is also good for people who might be thinking when they're designing about IPs and brands. One of the things we considered, like actually getting licensing, it's very expensive, and you probably saw in the last couple of years, there's a lot of licensed RPGs that came out, and some are very successful, but most of them aren't. And if you create your own thing, then you own the IP, so it's actually better. So that's why
some of those licensed games were very successful because people bought them because they want to put them on their shelves, but they're not playing them.
Right. Two of our upcoming games are like hilarious mashups, that one of which I think that you guys will appreciate, that I have to say is Portland, Oregon Trail.
Yes. Is it the hipster trail or is it what is the?
You got to keep Portland weird, and it's under siege. So
wait, what's crazy is this was written before this is happening.
So
which is
it's already a road movie. It's a road movie.
I got to add a frog now, but basically it's like it's actually a very big capitalist commentary is what it actually is. And
it's also that we can create a T-shirt that is the wagon, and then it says
with a bird on it.
With a word on it, it says "You have died from capitalism."
So I mean, we're already thinking of things like that. I mean, we didn't think it was going to come true this quick when we were making fun of this Portland, Oregon Trail. So I better watch out.
You gotta get on that one ASAP.
What was the other one though?
The other one, we haven't. The full title's not 100%, but it's maybe Billy Shakespeare's Prose Skater 2. So it's like Tony Hawk Pro Skater.
Oh my god, that's the kind of thing you'll see on the shelf and you're like, "What the hell is this?" And you look at it and you like laugh and you just buy it.
The Portland, Oregon, and the Mount Olympus are written. They're coming out definitely like first half of next year. The Shakespeare's a little bit later on. But.
Can whatever your like energy bar or whatever like we build up, can it be IAMs?
There is actually a Pax Out plug. We're meeting with one of the writers, to like talk about it a little bit more. So I guess we'll find out. But we were talking about stringing your tricks together to make like.
The doth and the forsooths and whatever. Yeah, I love it. I absolutely love that. But anyway, rapid fire questions. Who would like to go?
Most metal character death.
Oh,
this is all Chris.
I mean, I've had lots of characters die because of metal. I'm gonna actually steal my buddy Dan's from our high school D&D game. Dan, who started 9th level with me, he had a character who broke a magic item while he was riding a dragon during the final like battle scene, and the dragon and him and everything blew up. And then for the rest of the campaign, he was Saint Shane. He was like we deified him because of that action, because it was like, oh yeah, the war was over when the dragon blew up.
In the vein of Thunder Road Vendetta, favorite preferred Mad Max movie?
That's a good question. I think it's Furiosa.
I was gonna say Fury Road for me.
Or Fury
Road for me too.
Yeah. I do like Mad Max 3 Beyond Thunderdome. Mad Max 1 is not good. People
It's
don't.
not. It really isn't.
It's
Yeah.
awkward.
So it's I'll change it. It's the first half of Mad Max Thunder Road,
Thunderdome.
or Thunderdome, Beyond Thunderdome, then Fury Road, then Mad Max 2, then The Road Warrior, then Mad Max 1, then Furiosa.
Well, I'm gonna have to go to my favorite. So, do you have a favorite monster, BBG, or even aspect of Return to Dark Tower?
The original game, my favorite thing about it was being lost. Loved the art of the original game. In the new game, I think the Ash Hound is super rad. I also like the Empress of Shade, which is why she is the end papers on the book.
Chris's actual favorite thing about the game was the noise that it made.
The bazaar comes up. Oh, goddamn brigands!
Yeah, the new one in the app, you can actually play the old music as part of it.
Yeah.
It's funny.
It is.
Oh, I thought it.
Yeah, favorite part,
I do love the
would say,
original
of the
music.
whole entire thing.
I've literally played the new one for probably 70 hours by myself. And I put on a Game of Thrones soundtrack.
Yeah.
And I am like, I create a story and I
Great.
role play by myself. Yeah.
It's great. You know, I agree.
It's a fun game. Yeah. I definitely got my money's worth out of it.
The iconic characters and everything. Like we have the big spreads in the book, you know, it's like I love my favorite thing is like when we can put it out and then I'll be like, okay, well now I want to show this person. Like there's like the crazy like mad scientist guy, and then there's like the buff guy with like the gladiator guy. I don't know any of their names, but like
They don't have
so cool.
what you can't see is there's actually a Dark Tower poster right here. And it's the original poster from the new game that they're not allowed to use the art because they got into an argument with the artist after they did it.
Yeah, it's just
And
a cool piece.
I was like, this is the cover of my book. I'm going to do this thing. And like, the first thing they were like, you can't use any of the original art. You can't use that. I was like, no!
Awesome. Is there anything we missed that you guys wanted to talk about?
Wrastlevania is live through November 6th, but obviously you'll be able to pre-order it. It's planning to come out at Gen Con. So that'll be exciting. And we're kind of trying to think of a way to do some sort of event or tournament at Gen Con for Wrestlemania, which should be pretty fun. And then Thunder Road will be like a big presence at PAX Unplugged if people are coming to that. So it'll be available. We are doing a learn and play there on Saturday night. And then I think it has 120 seats. And then the Oops All Himbos actual play is running it on Friday night in the main theater. So you'll be able to watch them be complete chaos.
I really appreciate A, you guys reaching out to us. B, we get to learn about you guys, which is cool. You know, this conversation was so much fun. And I can't wait to hang out with you guys or at least see your booth at PAX and a drink, you know?
Come hang out.
Yeah, totally. And like, it's one of those things where when you run a company, and even though, like I said, we do a lot of things, and I, you know, sometimes I forget to reach out. So when I'm doing crowdfunding is when I think to reach out. So because of that, I was like, okay, I'm going to reach out to people, or have Amy do it. But in this one case, but yeah. So obviously, if you want to do something else later, we can totally talk about that.
Absolutely.
Great to have you guys. Seriously, lovely to meet you, and look forward to that. We're neighbors, so great to see you around.
We'll see you. We'll see you at the PAX Unplugged.
Thanks for listening to That RPG Podcast, where every great adventure starts with a single idea. Join us next week for more from our series, Tools, Not Rules, where we talk about how to make fair rulings, interview the designers behind 9th level games about their new RPGs, Thunder Road Vendetta and Wrastlevania, and embark on an adventure to a gas planet to save civilization with a hunting feast. See you next time.